The late Patrick O'Brian was a real sicko for tall ships. More specifically, a real sicko for their role in the Royal Navy of the 19th century. They tacked to starboard, firing volleys at French, Spanish, or American frigates and ships of the line, and he stood outside their windows hollering, "Yes! Ha ha ha! Yes!" He wrote 20 complete novels about the maritime exploits of Captain Jack Aubrey and physician, spy, and naturalist Stephen Maturin. For their length, Maturin is very Irish, and Aubrey tends to go off about papists without thinking. It's awkward, but they make do. One of O'Brian's novels, The Far Side of the World, would provide the rough skeleton for Peter Weir's Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, an adaptation that moves its action from the War of 1812 to an earlier Napoleonic War, giving its protagonists a French rather than American foe. This was done because Americans are big babies, and we couldn't have dealt with a movie focused on beating us up. It's true. I'm in my swaddling clothes right now. Goo goo. Gaga. The movies also harvest bits from at least 4 other books for an episodic romp down the coast of South America, around the Horn, and eventually into a bunch of iguanas? Iguanas! If you asked me, there wasn't enough business with the goat. The podcast is subject to the requirements of the service. Its Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World.
Totally scarring warmovis.
I probably can't do it because my child will be asleep. All right, we ready?
The Lesser of Two Weevils.
The Lesser of Two Weevils. Totally awesome naval combat. Welcome to Hinge Problems. I'm Rudy.
I'm Chris.
I'm Tigress.
I'm Shrug.
Gentlemen, ladies, I have one thing to say, and that is, it's wet.
That'll play.
War has changed.
Could love bloom on the ocean field.
Oceans are now battlefields.
Do
I
what?
saw that somewhere.
That was, the opening, yeah. I mean, I would say let's begin at the very beginning. That's a very good place to start. But we should say, we watched...
Tigress, what movie did we watch?
We watched Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, a movie I thought for many years was the second in the Master and Commander franchise. I think...
The title does
If
convince
only.
you of that.
I mean, everything had a subtitle like that. Like, it was like, what, 2 years later that they did, like...
Lord of the Rings, Two Towers? I mean, what? Was there a Lord of the Rings? No, there wasn't.
Yeah, I was thinking like Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, right? Like there was literally another fucking boat movie that didn't have a number in the title that was a sequel to a previous fucking boat movie.
So basically, it's not that this is the second Master and Commander movie. It's that this is the first Distance on the World movie, followed by Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Yeah.
Then we got to the end of the world.
Yeah, weird franchise, right? The classic third movie in the Cornetto trilogy at World's End, yeah.
Anyways, shame we don't have like 9 of these.
Yeah, that is actually a shame. This should have been a franchise.
This feels like this feels like a window into another world where instead of like every 2-3 years you get a new James Bond movie and every month you get a new Marvel movie. There's like this long-running, beloved by dads naval combat franchise.
Yeah, we get a serious Napoleonic-era naval movie about Russell Crowe not being fat enough for the character. I'm sorry, but it's true. And this weird, taciturn, bloodless cipher of a physician that hangs out with him.
I mean, that's dad franchise right there.
Yeah.
And they make beautiful music together.
Literally.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say, me and Rudy as the two dads here, we would 100% go see this movie.
Oh God, I would love to see this in the theater.
I remembered Russell Crowe being fatter in the role, and I was disappointed to discover that he's pretty trim.
Yeah, no, this was still Slim Russell.
Yeah, I think this movie definitely has had an evaluation because it was kind of dead in the water.
Been there since day one. I saw this in the theaters. I owned a copy on digital versatile disc.
Look, did
I
Shrek
knew
go to a
it.
midnight showing? Yes.
I wore a. I don't know the name for the hat. I'm not gonna.
It's actually
Horiz-
surprising to me.
a horizontal, or I mean, forward or sideways. I guess that's the question.
You'd have to wear it sideways in the old-fashioned way, because that's how Jack Aubrey wears it. Unusually,
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's it informing his care. Oh,
It's a character trait.
Old timey.
wow. All right.
Let's talk a little bit about this movie more in specific. It's a movie about a guy who's the captain of a boat and his friend, as mentioned, and there's a boat he really wants to blow up because it's French.
Sensible.
Does this movie prove that's great to join the Navy, be gay, and die?
Yeah,
No. I don't know. I didn't want to join the Navy. Like,
All the death is pretty somber.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a fun death. Not a
Yeah,
lot of
not
fun deaths, huh?
no.
I'm trying to these movies with these fun deaths.
it's really weird because this is like a lot lighter and breezier than some movies we've watched in a lot of ways, but the deaths were all like fucking miserable, which probably makes sense.
One of the first things that happens in this movie is a 12-year-old kid gets his arm so fucked up by big splinters that it has to be sawn off.
Yeah, that they have to get
Which
him
means-
high on laudanum and cut off his arm.
Which means there is a scene where a kid gets his arm sawed off in this movie.
He does a pretty good recovery, though.
Yeah, and
He-
and
he
they
leads
do
a
a good
boarding
job
action.
of leaving it to of putting it into the audience of like we're just gonna play like some synthy tunes here. You're not gonna hear the grinding of bone. But you do hear it. That's a fun magic trick, because you definitely hear everything that happens in that scene.
Yeah,
I'm going to wager that they were probably a bit little limited in what they could do by the PG-13 rating.
Yeah, that very much felt like, had this been an R-rated movie, we would not have gotten the shot that we got. But that's okay, because the shot we got
it's
works.
more
It
successful.
works
It's
okay.
more. I think it's more. What do you feel like this was limited by? I never felt this limited by PG-13. I'm actually shocked to hear it is PG-13.
I'll talk about it later.
Okay. I feel like I've interrupted Tigress like 5 times.
yeah.
Continue.
But yeah, I mean, it really is a movie about there's a guy and there's his boyfriend and they're on a boat and they got to kill a French ship that's like a new secret wet French super weapon that's definitely French and was definitely French in the book.
And they got to kill the new hotness. It's fine.
Yeah, they got to kill the new hotness with the old ship.
The French book that's actually as near as I can tell, a Spanish ship from the first book that they've transposed into this book
What?
to
No,
replace an American ship.
they've ruined my childhood.
Oh no.
All of the details, all of the physical details of the ship are from the Spanish ship in the first book. I'm being in the book guy already. Yeah.
Hell yeah,
Book
yeah,
guy.
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
So, Tigress,
yeah.
tell us how they learn about the new hotness, because this part was the best.
Well, because some guys,
His second cousin's
his
sister-in-law or something.
his second cousin's sister-in-law was in America where they built this Spanish design of boat for the French
In Boston.
and he described this boat so vividly that he built an entire boat model, meaning
And his
that
friend was like, "Yeah, I'll build it."
yeah,
Sailors whittle a lot. They have time to
Yeah.
pass.
and
There's a lot of whittling.
and so
Whittlepaw.
and so they managed to figure out what the boat is thanks to the power of building gunpla.
Yeah, it's Whittlepaw. It's great. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it.
After the opening where they get absolutely fucked up by their ship, just totally ruined, just wrecked,
Trashed, yeah.
just goat seed by this motherfucker.
Exactly. And that's when these two are like, "Hey, we built a model of this thing. You wanna check it out?" And Captain's
But
like, hell yeah, I do.
as a cinema viewer, I didn't see him whittling at the beginning of the movie, so I didn't know he could build models. Yes, this is me complaining about the end of the movie.
Speaking about how speaking about like differences with the movie. So first of all, the opening reminds me a lot of Saving Private Ryan, and that we're just going to open up, we meet these guys for 10 seconds, but we're going to learn about them because they all got their ass handed to them, which, to be fair, works better for me in this movie because they actually use this scene to convey shit about the characters we're actually going to follow for the rest of the movie and don't just kill. Yeah, so it's like way better, but it's very, very clearly a post Saving Private Ryan movie. The thing that I actually found really effective about this is just that it does the, like, a lot of people have commented on sort of the difference between, like, say a Jackie Chan action movie and like a Marvel superhero movie, which is that often like a contemporary superhero or action movie is just going to show, hey, look, our guy is like the most badass guy. He's badass. Here's a badass thing. He does badass thing. This movie is, we got these guys. Maybe they're cool guys, but they totally got their shit kicked in. So the rest of the movie, you have this whole stakes of, yeah, in a head-on fight, these guys are fucked.
I really like how the opening of the movie is incredibly atmospheric, and we're introduced to this ship in these extraordinarily close-packed hammocks below decks, like amidships, which sort of sets up all of the scenes on the deck where it's absolutely swarming with people. As something of a tall ships enthusiast myself, it's just wonderful to see. You get to see the half hourglass turning and the bell ringing and the changing of a watch, and then there's a slow build up where you get to see some midshipmen on their watch. They think they see something, they're not sure. We have this long pregnant moment, and then they get their shit kicked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get, like, the thing I liked about the hammock thing versus the deck thing is I think a lot of times movies set on these kinds of ships, like, you get a big feel for the ocean and the bigness of that, but like this movie starts you off in the claustrophobia of actually being on the boat.
Yeah.
And then just doesn't kind of let up on that pretty much ever.
I know people say, boy, the ship is really a character in this movie a lot, but in this one it totally is. Like, we are constant, like we see the ship in also, you know, in such brilliant detail, and I was watching, it's like, oh, so that's actually what that's for. That's how it works. You know, I've sort of understand the concept of boats, but I'm not a boat enthusiast, as it were. I don't know what the term you use for your community, Shrug.
Well, I try not to commune with too many others who are like me.
That's fair.
You're not going to BoatCon dressed as a half-mast.
The first image that you have of Maturin really is, well, there's one of the table in the gun room having all the shit. The gun room it doesn't matter. Anyway, just the gun room. The table in the gun room having all the shit knocked off of it, and Maturin laying out his surgeon's tools on it, which is very brief. And then after the ship-to-ship action, you get this fairly long still shot from like the corner of the gun room with a bloody body on the table, absolutely red. Maturin's in an apron, absolutely red. All of the walls are covered in sailors staring at him, and he's like, is it over? What's going on? And he's absolutely still and bloodless. It's great. I mean, you get to see how cramped everything is. You get to see him in his element. You get to see what a freak he is because he's totally composed.
Yeah.
What struck me on this watch, this is like the fourth or fifth time I've watched this, is just the masterfulness of us meeting each of the people on hand, and it begins with saying there's 192 men on this boat, and you're gonna meet all of them, and that we meet each person as the story dictates up to a point, and that like without putting a button on it, it is showing the reality of all these different of all the players on the ship, um, at each moment as the battle continues, and like I was like incredibly impressed that time. This time it's like, oh, here's the reality of what Jack Aubrey's doing in the Doctor, and here's just some guys, and here's a little kid getting his shit wrecked.
I don't know for sure because it's not like if they were doing this, but it really did feel like they had a great consistency with the background cast. Like that everybody has just enough of a distinct look in the background to make everybody seem like an individual. It doesn't feel like you may not know who each of the individual people are, but they all feel like they got something going on, even if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and it does the thing that I've complained about with so many of the other modern films is that you do get the wide shots, and you get to see how other people are feeling about the situation.
I really think the movie does a very good job of sort of like creating tiers of cast members. Like there's obviously your top tier main characters, and then there's like a second tier below them that are still pretty primary characters. But the movie's really smart and creates like a third and fourth tier of characters that most often don't get names, but you'll see them in the background. You'll see them react to things. You'll see them occasionally even, have a line or two, but they're there the whole time. And the movie keeps them there. They're just constantly returning to them the whole time. So you really get a feeling for it. Even if you don't know the names of most of these people, like you feel that they're the crew of this ship. It
Yeah,
feels
like his second in command barely does anything the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Collins. That's right, his name.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, he has a name. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought that was the guy who does well.
the guy that all right.
The guy who kills himself. I thought that was Hollins.
That is
No, that's Hollum.
Hollum. Okay.
Hollum.
There you go. Okay. I was confused there. But
Collins
yes.
is his first lieutenant.
Okay. That makes
Pullings,
sense.
sorry.
Pullings. There you go. Okay.
There you go.
Hollum is the Jonah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a very good, effective bit of streamlining from the book. Several of the non-coms, that's not the proper like period Royal Navy term for them, but basically several of the non-commissioned officers have their wives on board, and Hollum is as in the movie, he's a midshipman of somewhat advanced age who doesn't have much of a future. But in the book, he starts sleeping with the gunner's wife and gets her pregnant, and this cascades into a murders, a series of suicides, which eventually leads to the crew giving a Jonah's lift to the physician's assistant.
What is a Jonah's lift?
That's when you throw someone overboard because they're a Jonah.
The
Oh.
more you
Yeah.
know.
So they reduce all of that to just one guy who eventually kills himself.
Yeah, and make sure and just have 0 women speaking parts. The caveat I always give when I've been describing this movie is like, oh, it's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. If you can get over that there are no female speaking roles.
To be fair, all the women in the book are basically set dressing or used for extremely cliche bullshit.
It'd be pretty hard to have an affair on that boat, it feels like.
Yeah, in the book, everybody knows about it except for the gunner. Who's impotent? That's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So another book fact to tuck into your hat.
Oh, I love little
But
little fact.
there's also a movie that we watched, a movie called Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, a movie where cannonballs yawn through the fog like elephants. Sounds great. Wonderful, haunting stuff. They won an Academy Award for it, and nobody was impotent that we know of.
Yeah, we don't know the potency or impotency of literally anyone in the cast, so that's cool. That's great.
This movie is just the only thing this movie is horny for is boats.
Also, the king. but
It's the king.
I
Yeah.
can forgive it that.
Well, that's relevant now since
Yes,
there's
on,
one of
th- on
those
this
again.
on this weekend, on this weekend of all weekends, this boat is England. Let's talk about this boat
Note.
is England.
Oh, that was one of those moments of like you're saying you don't need to say this out loud.
Oh, I think
Sorry.
I like that because I feel like it was okay to put that button on there, be like, hey, look, that's why all this has to be like we have to follow all this rigid structure and keep the class online because this is like this is supposed to be the pinnacle of England with no women.
See, I guess for me, like the only other real naval book I have any encounter with is Moby Dick, where the boat is America. And so I just sort of expected the boat is England. Like, yeah, duh, okay.
One of the things that I like about the movie is it has a character that could function as a sort of modern audience point of view character in Maturin, and sometimes he does do that service for the most part with his like enlightenment POV. It does for the most part try to represent period attitudes
Yeah.
Yeah.
fairly unapologetically, because at least when they're coming out of people's mouths, right? So it doesn't bother me like it would in a lot of things that Jack Aubrey says all of, and maybe it's because I read two books for no good reasons, and it seems like the kind of stuff that Jack Aubrey would say anyway to me. But it doesn't bother me when Jack Aubrey talks, says the ship is England and people must be ruled and all of this other bullshit. It doesn't bother me that he's explicit. It doesn't bother me that he's explicit about that because he's facing pushback from this other person that he has absolute authority over. So he's being a philosophical tyrant and trying
Yeah.
to justify it to him, to this other man who he has a lot of respect for as a friend, but who he unquestionably rules over in the context of the Royal Navy.
Yeah, I think for me, part of the reason that little part of that speech, most of the speech I was good with, but the little ship is England part just it hit the screenwriter 101 thing that is minorly a problem for me in the rest of the movie. Does not ruin the movie at all, but there are a few moments where it's like, okay, you got that in the script, I get it.
There are
And
a few parts that are like that for me.
yeah,
too.
and if it weren't for those, I think the ship is England line wouldn't stick out to me at all. Like it'd be like, okay, this cool, because the speech itself works. That whole scene works. That particular line is the one that stuck out, and it only sticks out
Where
to
the
me
doctor's
because the
being
other.
sassy and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't get to go on vacation. You promised.
Yeah, you took away my vacation. Yeah,
Oh, that
and so
happens that happens in the book too.
yeah, I figured that probably would.
Maturin's a brat. Maturin's a weird little piss boy. I like him, love him. It's great.
I want to discover evolution in decades early. Oh,
Please let me be a little boy and discover evolution.
No,
I just
you
need
cannot.
2 lizards, and then when the lizards have little lizard babies, the king will grant me a lordship, and I'll prove evolution is real.
Look, and then I'll be on the level of this 13-year-old boy whose father is blue-blooded.
No, the boat is England. You can't leave England. Get over it.
The boy,
okay.
the boy who says he wants to be a fighting naturalist, and basically just, I'm surprised that nobody saw that and then immediately started writing their new manga premise. After
I'm
seeing
sure that's out there somewhere. I don't think it's been localized because again, very limited audience, but it's out there somewhere.
I was gonna talk about this later, but Blakeney owns.
Yes.
That kid is awesome.
That kid rules.
That kid played Blakeney. He played the young Octavius, the first future Caesar Augustus at HBO's Rome, and then he quit acting to go to school, and now he works as a producer. To the 2 significant roles we got out of him as surprisingly violent children are fucking great. I
Yeah,
love it.
no.
Shouting about how must board them. Very enthusiastically shouting fire. Fucking loving to shoot that cannon. I love Blakeney. He's so
I love
powerful.
that, like, when he first shows up on screen, the instant thought in my head is so many other child actors in movies that I'm just like, no. And then he right away is like, no, we're not doing that. I'm getting my arm
Yeah.
chopped off. Shit's getting real. It's cool. And he does a really good job.
So the great thing about all the midshipmen is they were like all taken from actual like English private schools. They were the kids they would be.
They're not necessarily midshipmen, but I guess the movie kind of treats them all as midshipmen. Yeah. They
Yeah.
could just be young gentlemen.
If you would like to answer to those questions, you can send to $50 at hingeproms.com and Shrug will read Wikipedia to you.
Yep.
Yeah. Shrug will read 2 more books that he
I'll read
unnecessarily.
2 more books. Midshipmen were young gentlemen were just kids that were sent away to sea in the hopes of eventually becoming midshipmen if they took to it. But also send us $50.
Send us $50 and we'll record an entire podcast about how awesome that kid is.
Just send your 12-year-old away to serve in the Navy. No big deal.
He might come back missing an arm, but he will come back an awesome dude. So, you know.
Hey, it'll be a fun story.
Or he'll be like the other kid and get killed.
And
Yeah,
in,
no, it won't be
in
that
book
kid.
slash history realities. So sending your boy on the like, how much was that like a parental decision, and how long was the actual expected terms of service?
That was something parents did.
So like, you've done 5 years of private school, so we haven't had to look at you now.
It's basic, like, I want to say the average was probably around 12 to 14. If you thought that your kid could possibly have a future in the Navy, you would try to get them on a ship to be one of the young gentlemen, and that would be their like sailing school. And then if they took to it, and parents actually paid money to keep them up on the ship while they did that.
Oh, it's like loaning a panda from China.
Ideally, in like their sometime in their mid-teens, they might become a midshipman, which was like an officer's candidate. And the ultimate goal of a midshipman was to get a lieutenant's commission. Excuse me, a lieutenant's commission.
Yeah.
Because there's an invisible F in it. But, you did have people like Hollum that got into their 30s or 40s without ever getting a commission.
And like, when you're paying to send your kid panda style, when the boat comes back, you get then you you pay for another boat, or are they like now in the service?
I think it was just sort of an ad hoc. I don't think you're officially in the service. You just kind of belong to the boat, and you're under the tutelage of the captain and his crew. And if it works out, then it works out, and if it doesn't, then maybe you get sent back to your parents.
What did it mean to be part of the crew? Is it like other boats where like once you get back to home port, you can just get off, or?
Well, these people were conscripted. Like most of the crew is conscripted.
The foremast hands could be conscripted. Like all of the peons might be conscripted. Officers were basically hired on an ad hoc basis by the captains. And also,
in my head, that was like the NBA draft, but for boat
like
captains,
the captain gets the captain would be assigned a ship by the admiralty. And then he would be responsible for crewing it with whoever was available. And I'm sure it's more complicated with that, and there was a whole whatever. I know that like lieutenants had to pass board exams, and in order to get the one thing that sort of struck me as off was when the one midshipman is made acting lieutenant and is killed, and he's buried as a lieutenant. which maybe doesn't make a big difference in the moment, but I don't think they had field promotions like that because you had to pass boards and you had to have people vote in order to give you a commission.
So it doesn't work like Star Trek, is what you're telling me.
Yes, the true basis.
Probably not as much as we would like.
Okay.
But that could also be based on something from the 3 other books that I didn't read that went into the movie.
Because I gotta say, my boss baby with this was definitely, oh, this is like Star Trek.
Get a life.
I've seen one other thing like this, and it's like, hey, Star Trek does like one of these episodes a season.
Yeah, the secret of Star Trek was always that it was just the Space Navy, like, and so this is not surprising.
Can you speak to a little more specifics of describing this movie and Star Trek?
Well, averaging once every season or every other season, you'd have an episode where the ship is facing off some opponent, probably a mysterious and powerful opponent, where the ship is super fucked up at the beginning of the episode and then has to proceed to slowly fight this ship over the course of the episode, usually resolving with a series of extremely clever and kind of bullshit maneuvers.
You also might get the B plot of the away team going down on the planet and discovering some, say, new species or
yeah,
new
and there's
people.
usually an argument with like somebody about, well, we're not a warship, we're in the Federation, and you argue about what's more important, like is it really like the violence or is there something else? And like,
Are we on an exploration mission or a war mission?
or a war mission? And Captain, I think you're taking this too seriously. These are all basic Star Trek like plot building blocks.
Okay.
Like very fundamental basic Star Trek plot building blocks, which of course is because these are all older tropes and older
stories.
I mean, Wrath of Khan's a submarine film. Yeah.
One day, friends.
I like Wrath of Khan a lot because it's such a Navy movie.
But speaking of like the argument with the captain, I know we've pretty much all agreed that the Doctor is a little piss baby.
I loved him.
Yeah.
But when he's like, Jack, you're out of control. You're a megalomaniac. You don't have to go after this French ship. The Phantom. That was just him being a piss baby, right? That's just because he doesn't get his little way.
I mean, I think there's some actual tension there because people are fucking dying, and it is sort of the one boat.
I understand why they did the whole my orders were only to pursue it so far, and I'm exceeding my orders, and I'm continuing to follow it anyway. But I didn't like it. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, you're only supposed, like, it adds a certain tension there. It makes you wonder, maybe he is over the edge. Maybe they are all gonna die because Jack Aubrey's got tunnel vision. It just doesn't make very much sense to me that they'd be all, we're really worried about this ship, but you're only gonna go as far as Brazil, Jack, and then you're gonna turn right around if you don't do it. So yeah, as for Steven, I think Steven is genuinely concerned because they are genuinely friends. I might be bringing book stuff into this.
No, I think that's in the movie, like that they are genuinely friends, and he does seem to have concern beyond just, as Tiger said, yeah, everybody's dying. He does seem to have concerns of like Jack, dude, like you're a little too into this. Like that's maybe not good.
Was he though? Is he though? Like I guess like he like Steven makes the comment about like, oh, I've heard some things on the ship, but I also feel like that's maybe more bluster and Steven just trying to manipulate and get his way. I mean, like, it seems like if you're on the ship, you're unhappy anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'm going to take a wild guess that Aubrey in the movie is like would probably be unusually nice for an actual naval captain of this era.
He's supposed to be. His crew is supposed to generally be. There's the line where he says his ship is not a flogging ship, which he says right before he has somebody flogged. But flogging is supposed to be very unusual on the Surprise. Again, bringing book stuff into it, but
I mean, it's shown to be unusual there. Get that great wide shot of everyone going, "Ooh, that looks like it hurts." But like, Audrey goes like, "You're gonna stop 200 years of privilege and tradition, my friend, man." Like actually trying to look at all the politics and all the things going on. Like my conclusion was just Steven is just being a little whiny boy. The Doctor's just being a little whiny boy.
Who wants to discover evolution? Yeah. Which is directly alluded to. It's like, does God make them change? Perhaps, but maybe they change on their own. I got some ideas. People are going to get...
Just like the people, just like Audrey changes.
It's a very Back to the Future. You know, your kids, you know, you might not get evolution, but your kids are going to love it.
You'll lose the tendons in your muscles that allow flight. So I wanted to talk about the deceitful French.
Oh, the vicious French.
What did the French do on that final battle? They play dead. They have one guy. They have one guy just hiding in the cabin, and then it's kind of like oops. And then you have the French captain himself who's pretending to be a doctor, and then Steven later is like, oh yeah, that guy died. I somehow know this information.
The thing about that...
Where's the screenwriter telling me how he knows this information? I'm just mad about that. Continue.
The thing about it was, I don't know if it's just because I'm oblivious to this kind of thing, but I didn't really get so much as what the French are so tricksy. It's more going back to what they said. And the reason, like, I forget whether it was Aubrey himself who said it or somebody else. It's like, he's like you. Yeah, because the whole idea is this.
I hated that line. He fights like you. He fights like you, Jack.
Yeah, and so to me, when they did all the French trickiness, it's like, well, they just did a bunch of trickiness, and it's because he fights like you, hit you over the head. He fights like, yeah.
Yeah, but in Aubrey's case, it was not knowing the level of your opponent. I could argue more. Again, I think that's probably his boyfriend sniping at him. Just get under his feathers, like the flightless feathers of those Cormacs. Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, the Cormac McCarthys.
Was it Cormorant?
Cormorant.
Cormorant. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those flightless birds. Because again, the Doctor really wants to discover evolution. His whole motivation in this movie is we got to stop fighting so I can discover evolution.
He almost gets there.
And then the French get in the way.
One ship with a gigantic French flag.
The biggest French flag ever.
Just a fucking huge French flag.
They wanted to advertise to space that they were French.
It has to be a focus testing thing.
Yeah.
Like, people watching it didn't understand that, he saw fucking ship. Or they didn't understand that he had seen that particular ship at that point. So they digitally added the world's biggest French flag to it. I mean, I think it's as big as the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like a whole other sail dragging at the back of the ship and slowing it the fuck down.
And it doesn't make any sense that a ship that's doing what it's doing would be flying colors all the time anyway.
I'm willing to forgive it as shorthand.
Yeah,
but
I suppose.
But I mean, as that's like the we've been circling around, so that's like that's the string the pull of this movie critically, right? Is when it's like when it abandons how natural and fluid it is to tell a movie.
Yeah, every time the movie's like, "Hey, watch them pump some bilge," it's great. Like, watch them prepare a naval boarding action, and then watch this boarding action. It's like, whoa, that's really cool. Let's see, let's think about the logistics. Let's pull some tricky shit by building like a decoy boat.
Watch a trepanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good trepanation scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Every time they have to move the plot forward and like
So, what about in
here's
this book? There's a stick book. It was like that was like the most unnecessary scene because
Oh
they
my God,
established
that
it like
bug.
3 times.
It's time for another episode. This is one of the plot episodes.
Yeah.
Alas.
This is where our screenwriter learned about symbolism and foreshadowing.
Data pops up a screen and says, "Captain, I've been studying the stick insect. Perhaps it could be relevant to our situation."
Yeah. Okay. So the scene, just real quick. There's this, the walking stick insects, the insects that look like sticks, and they talk about them multiple times as imitating nature, and then at a certain point, Aubrey comes in and they show him the thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it imitates the things around it so that it doesn't get killed." And he goes, "I have an idea."
Because it's so nonchalant earlier when they rescue the whalers. So they have 12 whalers on board. They go, I know how to make this look like a whaling ship.
Yeah, that part's fine. They actually set that up, but it's more just the moment where he's like, "Oh, that gives me an idea," and you're like, "Okay, like, sure, fine."
Yeah, I'll go as much as Star Trek draws like stuff from this. A lot of that kind of thing did feel like TV sci-fi show plotting to me, because like you have to make the characters look smart, and by making the characters look smart, you need to have a really stupid idea that a character figures something out from, so the audience also figures it out, so they feel smart, so they think that the captain's smart too, right? Like that's what's going on there from a writing standpoint. But it's it is like it really clashes with this because so much of the movie is just like, I'm not even gonna fucking tell you what we're doing because it's a fucking boat and we just know it, and we don't need to tell you what that rigging is for. We're just doing it because we just do it. Why would we talk about it?
Yeah, all this language, you don't got to worry about it.
Unlike in the first book of the Aubrey / Maturin novels, no one ever explains all of the rigging to Stephen Maturin for the audience. It's not necessary.
So you see, boats use rope, and they do this with the rope. No,
and it does a really good job of conveying a lot of how this stuff works just by having people fucking do it.
Like, they just show us the bare feet, and you go, "Holy shit! Their feet are bare. That's so unsafe, so dangerous."
It's like, how do you fix a ship? You fucking do carpentry. Watch them do carpentry.
Yeah. How do you fix that thing on top of the sail? You climb up and you fix that thing on top of the sail.
Look at this beautiful panning shot where you see 50 men doing things.
Yeah, God, this movie, you hear people like trying to defend like a bunch of superhero movies. They'll be like, but it's so technically impressive. It's like, no, this is technically impressive. The coordination for all of these fucking shots with literally 100 people all doing shit at the same fucking time.
Theoretically doing the thing they should be doing.
It's nuts. It's like all old Hollywood feeling, like in the best way of just get a bunch of guys to do some shit. And if it was CG, it was fucking seamless.
The French ship is CG.
Yeah, the French ship is 100% CG. They only built one ship. Or used one ship.
They bought a ship, like the only replica ship of its kind in the world. And then they made a replica of the ship that they bought and put it in a tank.
Whoa.
It's amazing how when you just actually have a thing, like when you actually have the place where things happen as an actual set,
and
looks
you
so
shoot
much
that
better.
actual set. Yeah,
it looks so much better than a bunch of people standing in front of a green screen.
It also, that's another thing this movie does really well, which is just like the physics of stuff moving. Like stuff is swaying constantly in this film because they're on the fucking water.
Oh, you hear everything in that boat. Oh, I loved hearing it all.
Academy Award-winning sound design.
Yeah, it's legit.
I think we're heading towards there. Are we ready to review?
I think we're ready to review.
There's one thing.
One more thing.
I have to bring back intel from the ancient past.
Let's do it.
From my ancient past. The one thing that has always kind of bothered me about this movie. It's not just the most, isn't just a line here or there. I think the boarding action at the very end is a bit of a slurry. It's kind of a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah.
It's very much of the time filmmaking in a way that takes you out of the rest of the movie.
Lots of quick cuts to people doing things in poor geography and lurching chronology.
I was sort of two minds about it because it's like I don't really know what's going on, but there's definitely aspects of this that like okay, like comparing it to some of the stuff in say the Dark Knight movies where it's like I don't know what's going on in this car chase and this should be a lot cleaner than it is. At the very least what's going on in this sequence is like very chaotic in the narrative.
And there's a lot of good moments, like Blakeney being a bloodthirsty maniac child. But
Yeah.
there was almost 20 years ago a poster on the web zone swordforum.com who was a reenactor and stunt person who happened to get a gig working on Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. And after the movie came out, he posted about his time being one of the French crew members in the big show at the end. And I don't remember all of the details anymore. It's been a very long time. But what he laid out was essentially a very long, very complex, if somewhat rushed production that had a pike wall with multiple stages of breaking up and doing all sorts of things. Many, many physical gore gags with blood everywhere, and other evidence that they were aiming originally for an R rating. And obviously, he was at a certain level of the production where he wasn't an editor, he wasn't looking at the footage, but he was, as someone who worked at his end of things, extremely disappointed with the end result and said that the scuttlebutt that he had heard in the industry was the studio did not want to make an R-rated serious Napoleonic naval picture, and they had kind of hacked the end of the movie especially to pieces in order to get their PG-13. Because
Yeah.
all of the teens that would be coming to the movie theaters to see a serious Napoleonic naval movie.
Got to get that hot high school demographic
Yeah.
into our.
As someone that was exactly a teen at that in 2002, yeah, obviously, all my friends were like Master and Commander heads.
We
we were getting the shirt at Walmart.
Yeah.
They did try to sell it as Gladiator at Sea, which
Yes,
Gladiator was
that.
R-rated. Gladiator was R-rated, and it made a lot more money than Master
Well, and
and Commander.
Yeah.
That was what that final fight sequence was making me think of. Is like, oh, they're trying to do like Gladiator camera shit, and it didn't work at all. There.
The thing is, if it was R-rated, it probably would have had more teens want to see it because it would have been like,
Right.
whoa, like, yeah, it would be
It's really fucking gnarly, dude.
Yeah,
This guy
like,
gets his arm blown off. First 10 minutes of the movie, his kid gets his arm cut off. What?
Teens are still saying gnarly, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
It's
they
looped
definitely
back
were
around
in
again.
and they were in 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, like, that was my problem with the movie on several watches, but on this watch, like, it's really not that different than the combat in the first and second combat scenes. I think it's just because we've been for so like those were an hour ago. The last combat scene was an hour ago, and it's such a change of cutting than we have seen
Well,
that it's noticed more.
That, but at the the first when the boat gets attacked, we're not really it's supposed to be chaotic, and it's supposed to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. We're
So-
supposed to have a sense of confusion at
And
that
even
point.
then,
That and they're just getting fucking ruined by cannonballs.
yeah,
Yep.
there's not like we don't need to know where everybody is, because all that scene needs to do is get their shit kicked in, and then have like little scenes of people we're going to follow throughout the rest of the movie doing their shit, so we know what those people are doing for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and then at the end, where we should still get scenes of people doing their shit, and we get a few.
Yeah,
it kind of loses the thread of showing us people doing their shit, and we have no idea where anybody is in relation to anybody else.
It's a much more complex scene geographically and chronologically, and it doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, like they say something about we gotta get the ship but we can't cross ships. Anyways, we did it. Who knows?
It still owns though. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, fucking kicks ass. Yeah,
That scene does not ruin the movie at all, and there's good stuff in it.
Yeah, this movie fucking rules.
Let's make it official then, Chris.
All right. Well, as we always do, we have a custom rating system for this movie on a scale of 1 to 5, usually based on something in the movie. We had a little debate about this, but I think we're gonna go with the Captain Silver as our rating scale. So rated on 1 to 5 pieces of the Captain Silver for your review.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. There's a certain point where I forget exactly what's going on, but there's a battle going on, and everyone is very insistent that you get the Captain Silver. Like they're getting absolutely destroyed by these cannons, and their job is to put the silver in a bag and make sure nobody else gets it. Which is okay, cool. Like, good luck not getting rocked by those cannonballs. So I think to start this off, I'm going to kick it to Rudy.
I knew it. This movie owns, despite my complaints, which I've already given them. This is incredibly complex work that moves fast. You can actually watch. It's a very long movie at almost 2.5 hours, but you can break it into chunks very easily, like I did. And it has all this language. You can watch it over and over again and get something out of it. It's like one of these pinnacle dad movies. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it many, many times. I will give the counter review, which Lady Rude watched the first hour with me with English subtitles, and she eventually, like, she opened up the Japanese Wikipedia page, read the plot, and did not return for the second half of the movie. That was her experience of it. It's great. I'm going to give it the full 5 Captain Silvers. Gets a full 5 Captain Silvers. Tigers.
After I finished watching this, my thought was literally like, God damn, I wish blockbuster movies were like this. This is like, it's not especially deep. Everybody's like just very arch in their characterization. But like just everything is so technically well done. Just the layers of complexity. Like special effects need to work for movies, and they need to work for the story, and God, do the special effects in this movie call no attention to themselves. They sink right into the background, making everything just look fan-fucking-tastic. And the performances are, they're not especially complex, but they're really but they do exactly what they need to do. Like, it's ironic that it's kind of a great turn your brain off movie, even as it's like this really technically complicated Napoleonic warfare movie. My one caveat there, though, is definitely that my 2 caveats now that I think about it. First, this is like, hey, let's have some colonial era naval fun. We're going to ignore most of the atrocities of the colonial era, but like that's not too shocking. But I do, because I'm me, I wanted to point that out. But then the other thing is there's just not much going on up there. It's not a very deep movie. You noticed I'm pretty quiet on this episode because like it was basically like, yeah, I don't know. There's nothing really to analyze. This movie is what it is, and what it is well done and cool. But it didn't really have me thinking or buzzing about ideas or themes too much because they just wear them. They just wear them on their sleeve, and it works. This movie works. It's a very good Star Trek movie, a pretty good Gundam movie. I give it, but like, but I do like movies to be a little more. So 4 pieces of Captain Silver. Run, don't walk to the streaming service of your choice that has this on there, which isn't much, and watch some naval combat. Chris, what'd you think of this movie?
I feel like I at certain points in this podcast came off a little negative about it. Whereas the problems that I have with this movie are so relatively minor and very specific because the vast majority of the movie works for me, so they stick out. But they're all relatively minor. They do nothing to detract from the movie at all. In comparison to the experience of Lady Rude, my wife came home as I was 15 minutes into this movie and then just sat down on the chair and watched the entire thing with me because she was just in it. And again, I think the linguistic barrier is not to be underestimated here because this movie uses language that even native English speakers are like, wait, what the fuck are they talking about there? And that's okay. It feels accurate to the movie, but it would certainly be alienating, I think, in a lot of circumstances. Again, not a problem with the movie. Actually, kind of an awesome thing in the movie. The 2 thoughts I ended up having about this movie is, one, I want to read some of these books. Like that's kind of a good sign for a movie for me is when I see the movie and I'm like, man, I want to read some books about naval combat now, which is not something I normally have much interest in, but it's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And the other big thought I had about this movie is like one of the things that I think has, how to put it, has fallen apart in the era of the Marvel CGI blob mess is the feeling of spectacle from movies, the feeling of seeing something like incredibly huge and believable and that I'm not going to see anywhere else that feels like it kind of just blows my mind to look at. And there's so many moments in this movie that do that. We didn't really talk about it, but there's a part where they're going through the storm and the entire crew is basically having to shift where they are in the ship to counterbalance so they don't get tipped over by the winds. And it's beautiful and visceral. And you just feel when it cuts to the, under the deck and they're all down there, like crouched over to the side, trying to get over as far as they can. It feels it. And it's just something that I appreciated so much, the feeling of like, you don't see this in movies. This isn't a thing that we see very often. And that was really, really cool for me. I really got into that. I just enjoyed this movie. This is the second time I've watched it. And I think I even enjoyed it more than the first time. And so for me, I'll go with 4.5 of Captain's Silver because.
So what's that, like a full set and then like a couple dinner forks?
Yeah, a full set and maybe one of those like tiny little like forks that you use on shellfish or something. Because kind of like Tigra said, there's not a whole lot of deep level thought in a lot of ways going on here, but the movie doesn't need it. Like, and so yeah, I'll go with 4.5 pieces of Captain Silver. 4 normal pieces and a tiny little fork or something. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Shrug.
I read 2 books before I rewatched the movie, and I don't really have a reason to mention this anywhere else, so I'm going to mention it here. In the book, The Far Side of the World, which sort of provides a rough outline that the movie follows, the Surprise chases a ship down the South American coast, around the tempestuous Horn, way up into the goddamn Pacific, and when it finally finds her, she's run onto a reef and wrecked. That's all that happens. Why did they decide to base a movie on that? Obviously, they fleshed it out a lot. They added bits from other books. They made nominally exciting naval battles to fit it into the skeleton. I just have to wonder who looked at the far side of the world and went, this is the rough outline that I want to base my thrilling naval adventure movie on. That said, movie owns 5 out of 5. The end.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Shrug, I will say your description of that book just made me go, fuck yeah, I'm reading that book. So, yeah. Like,
Okay,
yeah.
to build on that, like the equivalent for me was I was watching this is like, so what is the best Napoleonic naval warfare miniatures game rule set?
There's got to
Is there-
be a lot
Starfleet
of them.
battles.
There's I mean, it's literally like like all wargaming is descended from Napoleonic wargaming, like in actuality.
Co-host, we must beat the quarters and find our guy. Tigress, who's your guy?
I'm gonna go with the flogged twink. I guess he's like
Yeah.
Stuff he does in this movie, builds a gunpla, contributes to a man's suicide by saying he's cursed, he's a Jonah, and gets flogged. And for some reason, his shining blonde mane just kept drawing my eye to him in every scene. And I don't know if he's too much of a character to be a guy, but like this is a movie of guys.
Yeah.
Most of this movie is guys, and he was the guy I kept thinking about. So I'm gonna. I don't remember his name. I don't totally remember his whole deal, but he looks sad when he needs to look sad, and looks angry when he needs to look angry, and looks like he's in pain when he's flogged, and he builds a gunpla. That's solid 5 out of 5 guy. Don't have a lot to say about him, but maybe
one of the corpses at the end.
one of the corpses at the end. He's one of the tragic 20-year-olds who passed away instead of the older folks who look on.
Carpenter's Mate, I believe.
Yeah. So, but maybe you thought more about maybe there was more stuff going on with your guy, Rudy.
Oh, well, you just mentioned him. I think my guy has to be Hollum. As a fail son myself, I have to recognize when I see a fail son on screen.
Game recognizes game.
Yeah. Lack of game. No game recognized, no game.
Got a bit of a game, like maybe a Pokemon Mini.
You enter into a line of work and you're stuck into it, and you just know, I shouldn't be here, but what else am I gonna do? Like, what's he gonna do? Get off at the next port and go, I guess drink my troubles away. He doesn't seem like very much like a drinker. And the whole boat hates him.
Just everyone. Like just everyone's just like, that dude sucks.
Like even like a 13-year-old taking pity on you. A 13-year-old and
Yeah, 13-year-olds.
Yeah,
with the other
13-year-olds are like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like
Get your fucking
if he
together.
if he could have a t-shirt, he would have the Eggwood t-shirt that says, I'm the guy who sucks, plus I got depression.
What if roast beef was in the Navy? The answer is tragic.
Yes.
It doesn't go well. Nope.
Yeah, he's a good sympathetic guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and also that the seaman is a superstitious lot, and he proves it, confirms it in his death. There are things unknowable in this world. There are things that science can't prove. But there is magic. There is in some form in this world, and to be reminded of it by a man killing himself, that's horrible. Chris, who's your guy?
My guy, and this guy may have been someone else in another scene. I have a suspicion it might have even been Tigress's guy, but it's my guy for one specific scene. So early in the movie, ship gets its shit rocked by the French, and they're assessing damage. And there's one guy whose job it is to hang off the back of the ship and look at the rudder and go, "That rudder's shot. We can't steer anymore."
Damn, you're right. If I'd remembered that guy, he would have been my
Yeah.
guy.
That guy.
I
That
think
guy.
that's the Hobbit.
Yeah, I think that might be the Hobbit. But whoever it is, like that little scene alone, I was like, man, like there's a lot of shit jobs on this ship, but I feel like that's pretty high on the list of, yeah, we dangle you off the back of the boat and you check and see what's busted down there. And yeah, so that moment was just like, oh, there's my guy right there. Guy who
We're gonna
this is
have
his
to keep
job.
it for about 3 weeks. We're just gonna have to order the part. It's gonna take a
Yeah,
while
yeah.
to come in.
It did,
You know
it did
how
have
it
the
is.
tone of well,
You know
there's
how it
your
is with
problem.
them. You know how it is with them German rudders. You gotta keep them.
You just
like
get hit by 1 or 2 cannonballs, then can't
They'll
steer anymore.
they'll last forever if you maintain them, but the
No,
parts are hard to get.
Yeah, if you come in 6 weeks ago, we could have probably helped you out. But like now,
We can maybe get a used one. We can maybe get a used one for you, but I wouldn't trust that personally. I think you should get new. But it is an older boat, so the parts are getting scarcer to find.
We're gonna have to call the junkyard, see if they got a decent condition one for you.
I mean, but might honestly be faster. You, if you got a buddy, just go on down there yourself and start looking.
Yeah. So that guy was my guy, because just very matter of factly, like, yep, we can't steer no more. That's it. And so with my guy picked, that leaves Shrug. Who's your guy? I think we know.
My guy is Holdfast guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Nucktats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nucktats!
Nucktats and Coinhead.
Holdfast guy has Holdfast tattooed on his nuts.
I'm so glad you mentioned him.
He has like a 13 miles of gravel road face. Obviously an old salt. He's got these thick, bristly white mutton chops. His hair department is early affected in the film because he gets a head injury, which Maturin relieves by doing an on-deck trepanation and sealing up his skull with a coin.
In the surgery theater that they form by pulling a door off the top of the deck.
Yeah,
This
and
movie has so many cool scenes.
his thing, he does 2 significant things other than getting serious major surgery on ship deck with a fancy French saw. Is he spends a lot of time fomenting hatred against Gollum by speaking in cryptic sayings and Bible verses about Jonas, etc.
I've never known you to do such things.
Whenever they're waiting for something, whenever tension is in the air, whenever there's a pregnant moment, he stares at younger people while gripping something and showing them his knuckle tattoos that say "Hold fast."
That's his method of encouragement, is just check out the knucks.
Yeah, he's like a living piece of atmosphere. I really liked him. That's my guy.
So we have one more things we do on this podcast to hold fast, which is selection of the next movie. I've still removed myself. I'm recused myself for the rest of the year from being within the dice roll. But my 3 co-hosts have 5 movies each ready to go. So let's hear that beautiful dice footage.
Unfortunately, we got one of yours, Rudy, and unfortunately, the movie I rolled is the.
Do we want to do it? Do we want to do it, or do you want to re-roll?
I feel like since we just did, we're making comparisons there a lot. If we do now, it's gonna just be, how does this compare to?
Oh, we can definitely talk about talking about it.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I'm thinking that like they're similar areas of movies, so maybe we don't want to do that.
Shrug, what's your call?
I think re-roll.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair. But I wanted to check because I was like, look, that's like.
Yeah. That's Rudy Cannon movie.
Yeah,
so.
that's Rudy Cannon. Wait, that's good. Oh, me. The Young Lions.
Young Lions.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
Method acting.
Oh, so not the training dojo in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okay.
No, not that.
Hey, so when are we gonna be watching like the Monday Night Wars on this this cast?
There's a whole lot of
Three
unexamined
people-
PTSD from that.
Three people thought that was really funny, and I'm glad you're listening to us.
Does he do an accent?
I don't know. We'll have to
God,
find out.
I hope so. Dissatisfied with police duty in Paris, he requests to be transferred and is assigned to the North African campaign front. While there, he sees what war has done to his captain and his captain's wife, and is sickened by their behavior, which is only one of the three main characters of this film.
The other being Montgomery Cliff.
Heck yeah.
I don't know enough about old actors to recognize who that is.
You don't know
Oh.
Montgomery Clift?
You know Montgomery Clift.
You
We
know
do?
Montgomery
Oh,
Clift?
right, him.
Yes.
Yeah.
God damn it. I'm sorry.
the
I'm
whoop,
bad
whoop,
at names.
whoop on the
I'm bad at names.
Yeah.
This is
And we exchanged Frank Sinatra for Dean Martin. I love it. But do you remember why you selected this outside of it sounded cool from a
It
description we don't
sounded
remember?
cool. I don't know. I just was like, I needed to fill something on the list. I was like, this sounds like an interesting movie. That's it. I don't have any deeper motivation than
Lee Van Cleef? What a cast.
maybe I'm biased towards titles with big cats in them. Okay, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, we couldn't find a good tiger title, so we settled on Young Lions.
We have a bunch of tiger titles on the list.
Maybe we ran out. I don't know.
But we're going to 1958. We're back in World War II, friends.
Except we're with the Germans this time. Uh-oh.
The
I'm
Germans.
just amused that we're like, let's do something different from here to eternity. So let's do another 1950s World War II movie
With Montgomery Clift.
guys from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that was our reasoning for re-rolling, and it re-rolled. It's like, you're fucking watching a 1950s movie with Montgomery Clift. Get over it.
Yeah.
That guy was very insistent tonight, okay?
Will you want, listener? Will you wonder what the original number was? Yes, you will, but you won't never know. Next time, the Young Lions. I'm excited. We've got for 167 minutes
Yeah, this is going to be a marathon. All right.
again. Oh wow, that's the same length as Master and Commander. Hachi Machi. For me being me, for Chris being Chris, for Shrug being Shrug, and for Tigress being Tigress. This has been Hinge Problems, War Movies, and Shoot the Hinges.
Shoot the hinges with the
Shoot the
cannonball.
hinges.
Shoot the hinges.
Shoot the
$50
hinges
at gmail.com.
shoot the hinges in sharp fashion.
Oh, Shoot the Hinges, start fashion.
The
Would you
lesser
pick-
of two evils.
Totally starring war movies.
Good
Would you
podcast.
stop 9 years of god dang. Would you stop 9 years of privilege and tradition for this podcast? You must end it. Which is why we changed from video. Anyways,
shoot the hinges in sharp fashion. Yeah. Whatever.
The lesser of two evils.
You'll
shoot
figure
the-
out
Are we
how
just
to
in a
fucking
time loop? What is going on?
The lesser of two evils.
We're stuck in a time loop, yeah.
Of course we're stuck in a
The
time loop. It's a
lesser-
fucking Star Trek movie. What
Oh,
did I
it's
tell
true.
you?
Two
Shit.
weevils.
If there was a second one of these,
Weevils.
they would have like traveled to Pearl Harbor or something.
That's
Because
the
of a
sequel
time
when
warp.
they finally expand the Master and Commander cinematic
And then they
universe.
like debate about whether or not they have to stay here to fight. But then it turns out that because of that, because they got taken out of time, the Klingons won, right? So they got to
Klingons
go
won
back.
Pearl
Harbor.
The
Totally starring war movies.